There we go. Okay, let me put these two. Share this. No. All right. I'm an idiot. I didn't know how to work my mic, but it's working now. So we're good. New link is here if you want to join. Okay, cool. We're back officially. Let's see here. What do I see the chat? Why is the chat not here anymore? Cancel. Okay. Paste. Live stream link. Done. My story. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. I can't see the chat though, so I don't know what the fuck is going on. If I'm going to be honest, that kind of sucks. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick so that you guys can see everything that I'm doing. Cool. So you guys should probably be able to see this now. This is one of my athletes, Nick Stevens. So I was kind of talking about him a little bit in the previous one. It's actually bugging me that I can't see my pop-out dashboard. What will this do? That's 2 concurrent viewers. Settings. Overlay for breaks. No. Share. No. Edit. January live stream. Audience. No, it's not made for. Yes. Alter content. No. No. Add tag. All of this is fine. Is this chat? No, it's not made for kids. Okay, that's why there's no chat. There we go. Hey, we got the chat back on. There we go. Okay, we're back. Okay, so I told you guys that Nick Stevens is the first guy that I want to kind of go through. Now, I've been working with Nick Stevens for roughly about, and actually, let me drop the link real quick into my Discord as well so that people can actually, like my clients can bring in here. Okay, new link. My bad, guys. Mic was off. Okay, so Nick Stevens, I've been working with him for about 7 blocks now. He is a bigger athlete. He's a taller guy. He is, and I'll actually show you some of his training here. So he is probably right around, I want to say like 6'1" or 6'2". He might be in here, so he can let you guys know as well. But he's a big dude. You can see that. I mean, look how tall these safeties are. He's on like 12 or 13, which on a elite FTS rack is insane. But you can see he's a bigger guy, much taller guy, in the kind of like 100 to 120 kilo weight. And I've been working with him for about 7 blocks now. Now, the problem that Nick had in the past was the fact that he was really having to, or we would have to work a lot around like what his knee was doing. He had really big knee problems. And luckily, through some PT stuff, we've been able to work through that. You can see in previous blocks that, low bar tempo squat, we didn't really have anything loaded here because we wanted to just be able to move through the actual like movement itself and be able to get the knee healthy again. But now we've gotten to the point where he's actually kind of due up for a very big squat this block in the 265 range, which is awesome. I'm super proud of him and his ability to push that in his kind of like work capacity sense and being able to like come back from that injury and be good. Now, we have had a couple problems this past block, specifically around squat. And I'm going to be kind of bringing you guys through my entire kind of like thought process as I write his current block. So the biggest thing that Nick told me that he wanted to fix was the fact that he just didn't feel like he had a lot of pop on squat. You can actually see his direct message to me. He said, I just feel really flat going into this session, or this weight doesn't really feel smooth. He was still squatting like 220 for a set of four. So this is a guy who doesn't feel like he's getting a lot of like pop on a squat. The bar feels really heavy. It just feels kind of like awkward for him, but he's still feeling really strong. Like obviously what we're doing programming wise is working really well. Or maybe the basis of the programming is working really well, where it's like, okay, he's getting enough load, all of these things are happening, and he just needs like that extra little push. And so there's a couple of things that go into my mind for this when we think about how we fix it. The first one is going to be what we're doing on the secondary day. Now he did mention that he did feel flat going into the secondary day, so it may also be an issue with the primary day. But generally speaking, if he, and he's told me this before, if he is going into his primary day feeling flat and he just doesn't feel that strong, then it's an issue with this day right here. And even though this is a longer limbed guy who I don't think would get a lot of benefit from a higher rep scheme, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip that in a way to where he can still get a lot of like quad hypertrophy. He can still get a lot of like muscular fatigue or muscular tension throughout this day to feel like he's on for the primary day, but we're going to do it through his accessory work and through just a little bit more allocated workload here that isn't paused. So previously, again, he's been pausing these. With a pause, you're obviously having a little bit of like non-use of the stretch shortening cycle. Stretch shortening cycle is a thing with our connective tissue and our muscle, where it allows for a little bit more muscular force to occur at the bottom of a squat as you come back up. If you pause the squat, that stretch shortening cycle basically depletes, not fully, but to the point where he might not be getting as much out of it. So what we're going to do is we are going to be moving probably this competition pause squat to just a normal competition squat, bump it up by a rep, and add in one set. Why are we doing that? One, the stretch shortening cycle stuff to where he can feel a little bit more pop in that squat specifically. Two, the added reps so that there's just more volume. Moving from 405 isn't a huge deal, but it's going to obviously have a little bit of change there. And three, the added set is just going to add more actual workload into the day, which then means he might be more prepared for the primary day. But instead of having this front foot elevated split squat that we've been running his entire time that he's been with me, we are going to move this towards an actual like primary squatting accessory. This is, primary squat accessories. You can think of like a belt squat. You can think of a hack squat. You can think of a goblet squat if you need to lower it down to that point. But we are basically going to be moving him to a front foot elevated split squat from away from the front foot elevated split squat towards like a primary squat accessory, still with the 3 sets there. But now we're going to move it up to like 10 to 12 reps. So again, we're getting a little bit more like pop out of his quads for his primary day. Now, on his primary day, to get him prepared here, we are going to get rid of these ascending sets. We were running ascending sets on his secondary day as a means to make sure that he's getting enough workload in, because he was injured, because he had this knee injury and this knee kind of problem. And I kept them in as almost like a safety precaution. However, I think we've gotten to the point now where he doesn't really need them. He doesn't need to have this kind of like warm up structure on each week where he ascends to a single and then we flip it on the week 4, so to express top end strength. He doesn't really need this anymore. So what we're going to do is we're just going to change this to like a 12% drop, or start with a 9% drop and move down to a 12% drop. So if you guys have any questions about this, by the way, please feel free to pop into the chat and ask them. I tend to talk really fast, and I apologize. But those are kind of the things that we're going to change. So this is my general workflow when I'm writing training. You'll see that I've got notes for mesocycle 5. I've got notes for mesocycle 4, mesocycle 2, all the way down to what we will do right here, which is mesocycle 7 recap. And before I even do that, I am going to do the thing that every single coach does, where they copy over the block and they clear the sheet. So bear with me here. This is the boring work of being a coach, where you've just got to Control C, Control V your life away. So delete all the client notes and copy these over to each of the days. You can see in my sheet that I've got some wellness trackers and stuff. If you guys have questions about that, just let me know. I tend to really like using them on this while getting the same pump of Planet Fitness. It doesn't get better than this. Appreciate you, Evan. You the man. Appreciate you logging in and checking us out. So this is now a new block. We can move this to mesocycle 8, 1.12, which is next Monday, week 1 of 4, week 2 of 4, week 3 of 4, and week 4 of 4. And then I'm actually going to change the date. I haven't done this in so long, and it was something that a client brought up in my feedback form this month. And I'm trying to get better at actually changing these dates. When is it a good instance to swap certain accessories around? For example, move hack squat to the secondary, move split squats to the primary. That's a great question. And I think I kind of explained it a little bit as I was trying to tell you why I was doing these specific things. But when you have an athlete that's generally coming into their primary day and they don't feel like their squat is feeling very fluid, I would generally bias towards a secondary accessory that is training the actual squat pattern. Something like a belt squat, to where it's not going to add any axial fatigue, but it is going to allow you to train the quads. It's going to allow you to train the glutes. It's going to allow you to do all of these things. That would be an absolute reason why I would do that. And what we'll likely do is just basically flip these. So we're basically doing exactly what you're saying. We're going to flip the belt squat to here, and we're going to flip the FFE split squats, which I'm actually going to take those out just for a little bit of staleness probably that he has, and add in like an RFE split squat here. So I hope that answers the question, Aaron. Appreciate it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down in here every single thing that I just kind of talked to you guys about. And this is how I generally program. I will normally have this open on one page. And then on my second monitor, which actually the stream is on right now, I will have the block open so I can look at things. And I'm going to just write down everything that we just talked about. So client noted that he was feeling very flat going into each of his squat sessions. Both primary and secondary day were feeling this way, despite having a good amount of strength gains, with secondary day hitting 220 by 4 paused, which he's never done. So again, kind of everything that I've just talked to you about. He noted that he was feeling very flat going into the sessions. Primary and secondary were both feeling this way. He's still strong though. So what are our solutions? Solutions are going to be to push his secondary day a bit harder with one more added set, increase reps, and add squat focused accessory. And then primary day will change to normal back downs from previous ascending work. This will again get him pumped a bit more for the primary. And then since we're actually in this point in his training where he needs a full new macro cycle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out that entire macro cycle. So block 1, block 2, and block 3. I generally try and work through around 3 block macro cycles. I think it's the best way to do this. We're going to write down primary day, and then we're going to write down secondary day, sets, and reps. And I'm going to write through everything that we're going to do. So a 1x3 and a 3x4, a 1x2 and a 3x4, and then a 1x1 and a 3x4. That's what he's going to do. It's very simple. We know that this has worked in the past for him, so we're just going to continue doing it. Now, on the secondary day, we're going to move to a 1x5 and a 2x5, 1x4 and a 2x5, and 1x4 and a 2x4. These are 7 sets on each of them. And then I generally count my reps here. You might be asking why I count my reps, like my total reps. and I do my calculations here, is it's because once I'm done, I'm going to be able to see how much volume we're losing throughout the macro cycle. This is something that I think a lot of people, so 25 divided by 30. Okay, so this is something that I think a lot of people don't really pay a lot of attention to, is as they're moving block to block, how much is the volume decreasing? Now, as we're moving into a peaking block, we generally know the volume is going to decrease at least a little bit. It won't be a lot. And generally, I try and have it decrease on bench a little bit less than squat and deadlift. Bench, I try and keep it above like a 15% drop. Squat and deadlift, I try and keep it right around a 20% drop. So you can see here, he's retaining about 83% of his workload or 83% of the volume. So we don't really have to worry about it. Now, if I were to be starting him with sets of 6 here, and this was a plus 12, 33. So 25 divided by 33. Now he's losing 25% of his workload. That's a little bit too much for me, at least in my opinion and what I've seen. So that's kind of why I like it. Almost gives me a way of like auditing how I'm doing a lot of this stuff. Now, once I've got that figured out, then I can come down here and I can plan out his actual ranges. So his primary 1x3 and his secondary to 1x5. And actually, these are supposed to be 3x5s. So this drop will be even less. This is going to be a 15. This is going to be, oh, wait, no. Sorry. What is this? 3 plus 12 plus 5 plus 15. This is a 4 plus 15. And this is a, working a little bit too fast for myself here. 4 plus 12. There we go. So it's going to be even less. 29 divided by 35. That's actually a little bit more. That's hilarious. But then we can plan his ranges week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So when I'm planning ranges for somebody that is returning to a rep range, I used to use their previous single. And I think with somebody like Nick, that doesn't work very well because he, again, is a little bit bigger of a guy. And as soon as you start going towards like higher end 1RMs, the translation to 3RMs starts to decrease. And so somebody who has maybe like a 200 kilo squat, you can kind of use that 200 kilo squat to predict what their top end 3 rep max would be very easily. But when you have somebody that has a 265 kilo squat, that translation just doesn't work as well. And so I tend to then go use previous PRs or what he hit the last block, right? And I'll go back and I'll actually watch what that looked like. So for him, the last time that he hit a triple was here. And I believe he hit 220. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it was here to a 7.5. Where was it? He had a very good, maybe it was a set of 5. Bro, you got to log your weight, bro. What are we doing here, Nick? But I believe that this was 220. And I remember that 220 being very good. And so what we are going to do is we are going to just have him take his middle range as a as like the PR. So if he's feeling really good, he gets a 5 kilo PR. If he's not, then he's cooked. No, if he's not, then he matches, and it's still like a win in my book. But then we'll try and see what else we need to fix here. Also, when it comes to trying to plan backwards, this is something that I like very much so love doing. Is planning backwards for a lot of my athletes, where I'll start with a week 4 load and then I'll work backwards to a week 1 load. For Nick, again, he needs a little bit bigger of jumps, and so we're going to be taking not a 20 kilo. Sorry, that's more like on deadlift. We're going to be taking about a 15 kilo jump on week 3 to week 4. Generally speaking, you want it right around 6 to 8%. I tend to bias towards 8%, but for sets of 20 divided by 225, it's about 8%. I think for squat, around 6 to 7% is better. 6, 7, LOL. 6, 7. And then for deadlift, you can bias a little bit more towards that like 8% drop, 8 to 9% increase. Sorry, not drop. Here, I want like a 5 to 6% drop. I know that's going to be about 10 kilos. So we're just going to go 195 to 200 kg. And then again, I kind of want that 6 to 7%. So we're going to go 180 to 185 kg. So that's generally what his progression will be like, going all the way up to that 225 kilo triple, which I believe is going to be a PR, if I'm not mistaken. Now, moving into his secondary day, we are going to use the previous secondary day as a means of trying to see what he can do. So we're moving up to sets of 5, and he hit 220 for a set of 4 at an RPE 9. Paused. Now, normally what I would do is I would use something that Steve DeNovi has pretty much very much like what's it called? Popularized, where it's about 1 RPE or 1 rep equates to about 3%. So say that he was moving from sets of 3 pause to sets of or sets of 4 pause to sets of 3. I would normally go 220 times 1.03, and then it would allow me to have a range of 222 to 227. Thank you, Nick. Best triple was actually 240. But with him coming back from that knee stuff, I still want us to be a little bit below that. And I assume that this will move probably around like an RP8, which then would allow me to kind of say that, like, okay, at like a 9 to a 10, you can probably hit a PR. But that's going to allow us to kind of build momentum into this, so that he hits, hopefully a juicy 600-pound squat here. With him having a pause squat, I can't really make that translation of just 3%. And with him having a change in rep range up, I don't want to just like automatically bias towards that 3%. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take probably about 5% off, just because I think that he needs a little bit more, or sorry, not 5%. I'm going to take the normal 3% off, because we're gaining a rep, but we're also losing the pause. So it should be a little bit more translatable. So I'm going to take that 220 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.97. So that gives us about 213. I'm going to round up for this. I normally don't. I normally round down, but I'm going to round up for this because we're losing the pause. And so his range here is going to be a median of 215. And he's going to go 212.5 to 217.5 kg. And then all we're going to do is go 12 kilos back every single time, because that's what he likes to do. We've noticed just throughout his training, or I've noticed throughout his training, that he needs, a little bit of a 12 kilo drop every single time. And now it gets really easy for me. Now, and I'm going to do this split view stuff so I can actually use this. Now I get to go into his training, and it's just the data input side of things, where it's like, okay, let's change his primary day. And let me see why this is. Oh, it's bugging out because of that thing. Delete all of these. We'll actually start here. Okay. So it's a 1x3 and a 3x4. So 1x3, 3x4. And he's ending at 220 to 225 kg. And we are going to move him down from a 12% drop on week 4 all the way up to a 9% drop on week 1. So he's basically losing a percent per week because the RPE is going to go up. And so you can't really dictate that the backdowns for an RPE 9 single or an RPE 9 set of 3 is going to be exactly the same as the backdowns, or the exact same like fatigue cost as the backdowns on like a week 1. So I want those week 1 backdowns to be a little bit more intense than the week 4 ones. Again, just kind of another back end deload kind of structure as well. So now all I get to do is copy and paste this back and change what's in here. So 205 to 210 kg. And this is an 11% drop instead of a 12%. We go 195 to 200 kg. And this is a 9% drop, or not 9%, but 10% drop. And then 180 to 185 kg. And this is a 9% drop. So if I were to keep that like 12% drop here, his backdowns would be, took the top end of the range, 162. If I'm changing that to 0.91, now it's 167. So he gains about 15 kilos of total, like average, not 15 kilos. If we go 15 times 4, 60 total kilos of workload there, which is a decent amount, in my opinion, which is nice. So that's why I do that. Going up to a secondary day, as I mentioned, where this is just going to be a normal competition squat. We're adding a set in and we're moving to fives. We're going to go 175 to 180 kg. We're going to go 187.5 to 192.5 kg. Let me make sure I'm copying this over. This is a 12% drop. I'm actually going to raise this drop as well to 9%, just because, again, I want him coming into that primary day a little bit more ready. So I don't think that 3% is going to, do too much in the long run to hurt him. 187.5 to 192.5 kg. I'm just going to work through this real quick, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead, drop them in the chat for me. Love to answer. There we go. Cool. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. Okay. We're going to go back and we're going to switch this to a. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're going to go back and we're actually going to bump this to 240. We're going to try and match his PR. So sorry about that. Yeah, I think I was thinking about this wrong. Apologies, guys. 220, 210 to 220 kg, 95 to 200 kg. There we go. So let me flip these as well. Sorry about that. 235 to 240 kg should be around RP 9 to 20 to 25 kg. Should be around an RP 7 to an 8. 210 to 220 kg should be around an RP 7. And then 195 to 200 kg should be around an RPE 6. There we go. Okay. So his squat is now done. The only other thing that I need to do is move this up to here, move this down to here, and poof, he's good to go. I'm also going to change these to 10 to 12 reps. Just so, again, he's getting a little bit more squat-focused accessory work. Squat pattern-focused accessory work. Cool. That was pretty much everything that he needed to do, or that I needed to program for his squat. So his squat is finished. Moving on to his, and actually before I move on, I'm going to go grab some water, guys. My throat is killing me. Pause. But I need some water. So I'll be right back. Okay, we back. Hopefully nobody's left. No, you guys have. No worries. Okay, so moving on to his bench press. Bench press was, and always has been for Nick, a little bit frustrating. So let's look at what he took last block. So let me undo this split view real quick. Separate the views. There we go. So this last block, he is looking to hit right around 155 keys. This isn't great. His benches felt a little bit shitty. You can see that this was supposed to move at like a 7 to an 8, moved at an 8 to a 9. Not great. This was a little bit too high. His bench has pretty much been stalled out kind of around that 150 to 155 mark, which I think a lot of athletes have a problem with. It's like getting from 120 to 140 is always like pretty quick for a lot of people. Getting from 100 to 120 is always pretty quick. Getting from 140 to 150 is like, okay. I see a lot of lifters stall out at about that 150 mark, because I think there's just some changes that need to be made that aren't, in their actual training, obviously. But I think you guys know what I'm saying. The things that we're currently doing with this bench press is we're doing some touch and go stuff. We are doing some straight set stuff on a secondary day. And then this is his primary day here. So he's a 3-day a week bench presser. Again, a little bit bigger of a guy. He's also had some shoulder issues here and there. And so he needs just 3 days a week. However, I think that we can increase a little bit of the workload here, especially on this secondary day, maybe, or even on this touch and go day. And increase the actual ability for him to recover. So this is something that I realized with and I think again this is less of a programming issue in my opinion and a little bit more of a weight selection issue. And that falls on me as the coach. I prescribe ranges for him. And so if my ranges aren't great, he can't perform well, right? It's that's kind of just how it works. So I've been prescribing him ranges that it may just be a little bit too heavy to start out. This is something that I noticed with another one of my lifters, Zane. So this is Zane Poe. He is one of my lifters at Texas A&M, and he just actually messaged me this past week saying that his bench press feels amazing. Now, he's a very strong bench presser. You can see that last block, he hit a top single with 185. That's 407 pounds after doing a triple with 172. You can see that during his prep here, he hit a last single with 185. And then if we go to his actual Zane Poe USAPL, he benched 182, but he's benched 190 in training. Like he is such a strong guy. His butt lifted on that 187. I remember that. And one of the biggest things that I noticed was Zane's training going into this next block that he did was the fact that he was really liking the bigger jumps. Like this last block, we moved towards bigger jumps on bench press, which allowed him a little bit easier recovery during the beginning of the block. And I think that so a little bit of a story time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick so I can kind of explain this. A little bit of a story time. About 6 months ago, I changed my general ideology of bench press programming to the point where I was like, okay, people need like 2.5 kilo jumps per week, maybe 5 kilo. You should be starting your primary days at like an RP 7 and going towards an RP 9 versus like squat and deadlift should be at like an RP 5 to a 6 and then going towards an RP 9. So bigger jumps on squat and deadlift and bench. And I think that works for some people and it doesn't work for others, obviously. But I bought in a little bit too hard to that ideology and I started doing it for all of my athletes, even the ones that if you take a step back and look at their style of bench pressing, if you take a step back and look at how they bench press and the weights that they're using, they need bigger jumps. Nick is one of those guys. If you look at Nick's bench press, he is not a highly technical bench presser. I'm sorry, Nick. It's the truth. He's got a longer range of motion. I guess he is a pretty highly technical bench presser, but he has a longer range of motion here. I mean, you can see this. Let me share my screen real quick. Sorry. But you can see he's got a pretty decent range of motion here. You know, this isn't just like no range of motion. So what I'm going to do moving into this next block is I'm going to be doing two things. One, I'm going to be changing his quaternary day or his tertiary day a little bit to where he is, hide this, to where he is, this is the wrong guy. That's sorry, that's Zane. Changing his quaternary day, or not his quaternary days, is tertiary day a little bit to where we're losing one of these sets of higher volume work, but I'm going to add in 2 sets of close grip. And I think that that's just going to be a muscular preparedness switch to where over a span of 3 to 4 blocks, he is going to, I don't need to cut, I need to bulk and reduce my bench press ROM via bloat. Goated. That is one way to do it, brother. But one of the things, like just being able to have more musculature on your body for bench press is going to be the primary factor. For squat and deadlift, it's a little bit more like technical ceiling. Although bench probably has the highest technical ceiling of any lift, I think the ability for it to change the actual load on the bar is the lowest. versus deadlift and squat, you can change your actual like programming and you can change your technique. And it's just like, whoa, within a block, I feel really good versus bench press. It almost lags behind a little bit because it's more muscular preparedness and hypertrophy work that allows you to do that. And so what we are going to do is we're going to take away one of these sets of 7. We're going to add in 2 sets of like 6 or 7. There we go again. 6, 7. We're going to add like 2 sets of 6 or 7 close grip. And we're going to work through those in a way to where he's hitting like maybe an RP7 by the end of the block and using it like an accessory, basically. It's all going to be touch and go still. And then on the primary day, instead of doing this like 140 to 145, 142 to 145, or 147, 145 to 150, and then 150 to 155, which is finally that big jump, we're just going to make 5 kilo jumps every week. So instead of having a delta of 15 kilos, we're going to have a delta of like 25 kilos, which I think is going to help him a ton. So much like on squat, we're going to work through what the client told me. We're going to work through my solutions. We're going to plan out the next 3 blocks, and we are going to write out his ranges. And I don't think I'm going to plan out his next 3 blocks on bench press because I want to be able to change it a little bit more than the other 2. So seems like he is stalling out a bit on bench. Can't breach the 150 range. Has had small jumps for a majority of the past few blocks on his primary day. This may be a bit too high for him to start with, so he never really recovers in a week 1. Now, recovery, because bench recovery is fake news, but you guys know what I mean. Solution for this is going to be larger jumps on his primary day. Other than that, all he needs is more workload for the tissue. So higher volume stuff on his tertiary day will help. Plus new accessory, which is touch and go close grip. Again, we're not going to go through the block 1, block 2, block 3 stuff because I don't think I need to. I want to be able to see one block out and see if it works, but I'm still going to write this out. Primary day, secondary day, tertiary day. He's got a 1x1, a 1x4, and a 3x4 on his primary day. I think he has a 1x1 and a 4x4. Oh, there we go. We're going to add one more set to his secondary day as well. Also add 1 set to secondary day. So this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, again, we're going to kind of try and work through like a workflow here. So squat, he fell flat. And so we knew that like, okay, more volume is going to be the fix. Or not more volume, but like more allocated workload towards the quads and the glutes is probably going to be the fix. On bench, he's just kind of like, I don't really know. So he's not feeling weak, but he's not moving the weight the way that he should, but he's still feeling recovered. So generally speaking, to me, that is not I need more reps or higher like rep ranges. So sets of 7 to 8. That's not, I need heavier load, more intensity. It's like, I just need more volume. I just need more. And so that's what we're going to give him. So instead of a 3x5, he's going to have a 1x1 and a 4x5. And then on his tertiary day, we've got our 1x5, our 2x7, and our 2x6. Actually, I'm going to flip that to be a 2x6 and a 2x7. And so he's got a back down of 2x6 and then 2 sets of 7 close grip. And then we can plan out his ranges here. So primary day 1x1, primary day 1x4, secondary day 1x1, secondary day 4x5, and then tertiary day 1x5. We are going to plan this out week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Let me add this back to split view. There we go. And now we can kind of work through this again. So we know that we want to almost like repeat the top end load for this block from the previous block. So we're still just going to write that in as 150 to 155. Now we're going to take 5 kilo jumps each week. So now instead of starting with a top end range of 145 here, we're starting with a top end range of 140. So there's a delta of almost 10 kilos if he takes the bottom. For his 1x4, though, he's still cruising through these pretty well. He's taking top end of the load at the RPE. So again, this is not like he's doing really well with the reps, but he just can't express the top end. And that's why I think it's a little bit more of like a load dependent issue of like having him do a little bit more or a little bit less early on so that he can do more later on in the block. So we're just going to treat this like any other block that I would do, where I just bump him by like 2.5 kilos. This is where it gets kind of easy. And for the back down work, we can take these small jumps because he's doing it very well. And we actually want that back down work to be pretty high. And so that's how we're going to do that. For a secondary day, again, we're going to kind of like make smaller jumps. Here, this was supposed to be an RP8. It was an RP8 to a 9. So we're going to take the same range, 137.5 to 142.5. We're going to go down 5 kilos apiece, 127.5 to 132.5, 122.5 to 127.5. So again, very easy. We're coming down there. And then his secondary day 4x5. Now, this is a strategy that I really like doing with a lot of my athletes. It is basically the straight set with RPE cap. So you can see here that he has a 3x5 at a specific range and then a 0x5. It's like, what the hell is that 0x5? What does that even mean? Basically, what happens is I have them take a set within this specific range, and then they repeat that set until it goes above the RPE cap. So this first week, he might take 122.5 for all 4 sets. So he doesn't have any sets here, and so I don't even have to look at it. I'm like, cool. He took every single set with 122.5. That's pretty baller. By week 4, with 130, he might only, and he's already logged that in there, he might only be able to take 3 minus that. He might only be able to take, like, he takes 130, but he only gets 1 set. So then he changes this 3 to a 1, and he has 2 sets of 5, 2 back downs. So it allows him to like auto-regulate his workload without actually like losing too much out of it. So we're going to, again, much like the other stuff, we're just going to bump this 2.5 kilos just like we did on his primary day, but we're going to drop it 5 kilos a piece instead of the 2.5 that we did on his secondary day or on his primary day. 112.5 to 117.5 kg. There we go. Okay. How do you determine by what percent drop to use for those sets? So this is, again, that's Steve DeNovi stuff. So I want your back downs to essentially be like 2 RPE below, right? So it's just a 6% drop. You tend to do pretty well with that. I have some people that need a 9% drop. So like, for example, here, this is a 9% drop because I want it to be 1 RPE below it. And it's 1 more or 2 more added reps. So like, let's do some math here. If we've got a 1x5 and a 3x7, we take the rep discrepancy. If I want it to stay the same RPE, that's 2 times 3. So that's a 6% drop. But I want it to drop 1 more RPE. So it's 6 plus another 3%. So it's a 9% drop, which that's pretty nice. I didn't mean to do that. But I generally still use that principle of like 3% is equal to 1 rep or 1 RPE when I'm doing my percent drops. So here you're losing, 2 reps. And so it's a 6% drop. And I want it to drop about 1 RPE. So we're going to drop it down by 3%, an added 3%. Versus here, the reps are staying the same. I just want 2 RPEs to drop. Or here, the reps are staying the same. I just want 2 RPEs to drop. So the first set here should really feel like an RP6, maybe an RP7, because you've got all of this other stuff here. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the thumbs up or the handshake. I'm glad that worked out pretty well, and the explanation was good. On his tertiary day, I'm actually not going to write any ranges in. I want to keep this as an RPE based thing. just because it's a little bit more subjective with the touch and go stuff, and I want him to like really kind of push that pretty hard. And I think if I give him a range, it might not allow him to do that. So once again, we're going to just go through all of this. We are going to change what's going on. Top end range stays the same there. That stays exactly the same. I think the back down stay exactly the same all the way through. That stays exactly the same. This goes to 140 to 145 kg. This goes to 135 to 140 kg. RP 6, RP 7, RP 8, RP 9. Just roughly what they should feel like. Secondary day, 137 to 142. That's staying the same. 127.5 to 132.5 kg. RP 8 cap. The first 2 weeks, I tend to try and have this be like a sorry, I'm trying to do this and speak at the same time. First 2 weeks, I try and have it be like a like an RP 7 cap, and then the last 2 weeks an RP 8 cap, just because again bench press can deal with that a little bit better. 127.5 to 132.5 kg RP 7, 117.5 to 122.5 kg RP 7 cap, and then this last two 122.5 to 127.5 kg RP 6, 112.5 to 117.5 kg RP 7 cap. So there's that, and then the last thing that we need to do here is change that and that. So that means that this goes up because one RPE, one thing. So this is going to be a little bit heavier, and then we're just going to insert a row below, merge these there. TNG close grip bench press. I believe I said a 2x7, 7, RP6, RP6. Just go RP6, RP6, RP7, RP7. Best way to do it, in my opinion. So you're adding in something new. Cool. So now his bench press is done. So we're about 45 minutes in. I got done with squat and bench press. Deadlift has been great. Deadlift has been moving really well, despite him failing his top set for 2 blocks in a row. It's a little air out of our sails. He failed 300. Very close to lockout. He failed 277 for a triple, very close to lockout. I think that he's got it. I really do. This is one of those where it's like really frustrating as a coach. No, you don't stink. Don't worry. This is one of those where it's a little bit frustrating as a coach, not because of what the athlete is doing, but just because it's like you see him get so strong throughout the block. And then on week 4, it's just like, something happened. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take a step back a little bit and make sure that he's going to, no matter what, have a successful week 4. This is a little bit more into the mental game and the soft skills, in my opinion. When you have an athlete that fails a top set, you want to be able to instill confidence in them into the next block. And one of the best ways to do that is make sure that they are pushing themselves to a point where they are able to express that top end strength, or not express the top end strength, but may have a like successful like week 4, because 3 blocks in a row of failing a top set is not fun. I've been there. It's happened to me before. Your confidence just goes completely down, and then you just don't even feel like training anymore. And so we're going to actually lower the expectation a little bit so that he smashes. And normally I wouldn't tell the athlete this. Normally this is something that I would do without them even knowing. So I'm sorry, Nick, that I'm telling you in advance that we're doing this, because you're in the chat and you're actually like watching this. But that is generally why I would kind of do that. No, you're good, man. So if we go into deadlift, you can see that he's a 2 times per week deadlifter. Again, let me split this off. He is a 2 time per week deadlifter. He's got one set of deadlifts here, or one day of deadlifts here on a Friday, one day of deadlifts on a Monday. Uh, the actual like rep ranges and stuff they look pretty good. You know, like he is like this is we figured out the golden macro cycle for him. Like all of that stuff is good. We're just trying to figure out like what exactly he needs to do, and what the exact loads are to have him feel strong or anything like that. And so we're actually going to be repeating this triple here, but we're actually just going to have him take 275 as like top end load here, because knowing, I mean, like if you want to watch his actual like pull, dude, it was so close. Like we go forward, like it's close. That is close. Like that is close. Like that is so almost there. And the second rep moved really well, and so that's why I was a little bit surprised that the third rep didn't move that well. Second rep was flying, but we know that what he's currently doing is working pretty well. And so we don't want to change too much of it. We just want to kind of drop him back a little bit so we can have a successful block. And so that's all we're going to do. Deadlift athlete was feels and can express top end strength very well. Just a bit of an overreach on my end regarding loads that he can take. So that's really all I need to say. There are some other things that I've already had in my mind for his deadlift. Again, I want him to have a little bit more workload. So I'll kind of show you guys how I'm going to be doing that with his back down work on his primary day. His back down work is actually not going to be focused around the top set. His back down work is going to be focused around a certain percentage of his 1RM. So that's going to be kind of how we do that. Primary day, secondary day, sets, reps. Going to be exactly the same. We are going to add one set to his secondary day. Right now, he only has a 3x4. We're going to move that to a 4x4. So he's got 1x4, 3x4, 1x4, 3x4. And then I really like doing this offset rep stuff on his third week. Or his third block, to where we're able to just like be exposed to a heavier load more for that top set. So he's able to then kind of have that feed in by week 3 going into week 4 of his primary deadlift. And then we're just going to go through a normal little 3-2-1, much like squat, 3-2-1 structure here. The only difference is now these are going to be percent based back downs on blocks 1 and 2. Percent drop back downs on block 3. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's something that I'm starting to do a little bit more often, where I am doing percent based back downs based on like a 1RM on blocks 1 and 2. And then as we go into like a peaking block, I will have the back downs be a percentage of his top set. Again, that kind of gets into the like what you did last block determines what you're doing for the next block and how you feel. So allocating a lot of stress towards his first 2 blocks allows him to express top end strength on the last one. This is like the workload building that I think myself, Sean Noriega, a lot of other coaches have started to talk about a little bit. So I'll kind of show you how I do that. But before we get there, he's got 8 total sets and 3 plus 12 plus 16, 2 plus 12 plus 16, 1 plus 12 plus 3 plus 12. So almost no drop in load here. It's only about, he's going to be chilling here. Actually, yeah, that should be fine. Primary day 1x1, primary day 3x4, because it's not a percent drop now, it's percent based. And then secondary day 1x4. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So I already told you that it's not a 1x1, it's a 1x3. This is going to be about 270 to 275 kg. We're going to take the big jump down, 250 to 255 kg. As said, like about 20 kilos. If we do that math, 20 divided by 275 is about 70, like 7%. So that's perfect. 237.5 to 242.5 kg, and then to 22.5 to 27.5 kg. Yes, it is optimal, brother. It is extremely optimal to listen to a live stream while you're doing your primary day. Let's go. Hopefully that went well, brother. Maybe we'll get some live feedback from you if you want to send it to me. I think that would be sick. So on the secondary day, now we're going to pull up a chart that I think everybody in this chat has seen. RPE percent chart. The reactive training systems customizing your RPE chart. Man, this is like step one of being a powerlifter, in my opinion. Like, this is crazy. When I started as a powerlifter with Joey Flex, this was in the top of every single block that he gave me, because it allowed me to everything back then was like pretty much RPE based. Like, there was no ranges. It was just like RP6, RP7, RP8, RP9. That was how you went through your days. So this is going to be how we're going to allocate what we do on his secondary day. Now, his secondary day, I want him, or not his secondary day, his primary day. His primary day, he's working through sets of 4, so we're going to be focusing here. And we're going to be using 5 kilos less than that failed 300 that he had, because I know in my head, like just from intuition, he probably would have pulled 295. 100% he would have pulled 295 in my opinion. And so we want him to end the block with a probably about 80, like an RP8 set of like 3 sets of 4 back downs. However, he's got an RP9, probably 8 to 9 triple right before that. So we're going to take about 1%, 2% off. So I'm going to say that we want him to end with like 81%. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to write in 81%. And then we're just going to go down 3% or 1 RPE every single week. 75%, 72%. So starting at 72% back downs, he's moving up to 81% back downs. On his secondary day, we're just going to see what he would need. So I'm going to say that he probably needs about 91%, or not 91%, sorry. He probably needs like right around this, where is it? Oh my God. He probably needs maybe just a little bit more than this. So we're going to go like 225 to 230. Sorry, 230 to 235. This should be 235. Sorry, by 275. Yeah, so it's like right around the 80 to 85% from his top set on his week 4, because it's week 3 secondary precedes his week 4 primary. So 230 to 235 kg equals 225. Or we're just going to jump 5 kgs here, 40 kg, and then 10 kgs every single other day. There we go. So each of these should be roughly about like 88 to 85% from what he takes the next week. And then just a very small jump from week 3 to week 4, so that last session doesn't bleed into a squat, so that he feels good. Okay, let's split this off again, or let's add us to split view again. Nick Stevens, there we go. And I'm actually going to rearrange this because I hate the way that this is set up. Much rather have it this way. There we go. We're just going to go again, and we are going to plug and play. We go all the way over to his thing here, 270 to 275 kg, RV8 to a 9, 3. And then instead of having this be a 15% drop, which normally would be, no, not 175, 275. Normally that would be 235. Now we're going to take 0.81 times 295. Now it's going to be 235 to 240, because again, I round down. So again, a little bit heavier. And it's going to allow the previous weeks to be heavier as well. 235 to 240 kg. Boom. So where this would be, if we were to do this normally, 250 to 255 kg, should be around RP 728. I load in 255 kg. This is 220. So now you're going to see probably a little bit bigger of a discrepancy here. 0.78 times 295. It's 10 kilos. Like 10 more kilos for 12 more reps is going to have a lot more adaptation. So 227.5 to 232.5. Let's see. This will be 237.5 to 242.5 kg. This should be about an RP7. And this will be 0.75 times 295. 220 to 225 kg. I'll round up for that one. And then this will be 222.5 to 227.5 kg. Repeat 5 to 6.72 times 295, which is 212. So 210 to 215 kg. So you can see that on his week 1, he only has about a 12 kilo drop from his top set to his back downs. Versus on week 4, he has about a 35 kilo drop. So you can kind of see why, like, okay, yeah, it's still pretty light. 215 for him is still pretty light, but it's so much more workload. Versus if he were to take even the 12% drop from this 227, he's taking 200. Now we're adding 15 kilos to that back down. So it ends up working out really well, I think. And then on his secondary day, we've got 210 to 220 kg. This one I'm not too focused on putting like an RPE in because I know that he just needs to take something in this range, so I don't care how it feels. Sorry, that's the truth, Nick. Whenever you see something without an RPE, you just need to take it because that's what the percentages are. And that's it. That's everything. That is Nick's entire block written out. It's about an hour long. Normally, this takes me about 45 minutes if I'm not explaining everything like to you guys. And then I take the last 15 minutes to put together a block intro video. You can see those in his actual sheet. So if we go to Nick Stevens folder, his block intro videos are all here. I use OBS to film these. It is the open broadcast system or open broadcast software. Very easy to set up. If you have a webcam, it's free. You don't have to pay like Loom or anything. Then I just put everything in there. Yes, it can. Absolutely. Because if you're fine with that, I'm fine with that, Nick, because I can film something for you, but this can absolutely be your block intro video if that's okay. Which I might just add a link in here to the actual like YouTube thing. So that's Nick's entire block. I'm going to take a little bit more of like a 5-minute break here. Chill out a little bit, drink some water before we hop into Thomas Swarthout's taper week that we're programming. Because he's about to do something crazy in Minnesota. So, Minnesota! Shout out Joe Biden. But let me set everything up here for Thomas so that he's good to go. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know in the chat. Okay. I'm going to go grab some more water. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to introduce you guys to my cats. Let me go ahead and stop streaming so you guys can I'm going to introduce you guys to my cats. Yeah. So this is one of my cats. His name is Beef. This is one of my cats. His name is Beef. He's a kitten. He's probably like 6 months old. We got him when he was like a month-ish old. But his name is Beef, and he's a fucking psychopath. I really wanted an orange cat, and he is everything that I ever wanted. He is so fucking crazy. I made a comment to my wife that made us both laugh because she was like, "What is Beef doing? Like, why is he making that much noise?" And I looked at her without any expression on my face and goes, "Oh, it's nothing. He's just playing with the wall." Yeah, because that's a normal thing for people to do and cats to do. But yeah, he was just playing with the wall. So this is Beef, little beefy boy. His full name is Beef Tookus. Tookus as in like butt. So Beef Butt. And then my second cat was my first cat, actually. And his name is Sashimi. This is Sashimi, aka Sashimi Potato, which is his middle name, aka what we call him, Chicken. So we have Chicken and Beef as cats. Chicken and Beef. Sashimi's a little bit meaner. He's not you can hear him, he's a little bit more vocal. He's been having some behavioral issues. He's not super nice all the time, so we drug him a lot. We give him gabapentin just to kind of like ease him out. He's very anxious. I take blame for a lot of that because I left him alone a lot as a kitten. But he's pretty chill if you leave him alone. As soon as you pick him up, he can be kind of not okay. His drugs are kind of wearing off right now, but I'm going to let him go because you can kind of hear him being vocal. But that's Beef and Chicken. So that is my cats. Let's get back into the programming stuff, though. So, as I mentioned, we are going to go through Thomas Swartout's taper week. So, Thomas is another client of mine. He is competing next weekend and at the Minnesota State meet, and we have put together a very good prep. Very, very good prep. Last block, let's go through his top end loads here. Last block, he had a PR with a 290 kg pull. He hit a PR with a 260 kg squat, and he hit technically a PR. It was touch and go, but a PR with a 200 kilo bench press. More likely, he's going to hit about like 195 ish. 192 to 195 is probably his top end load on bench press, just because of like the holds and the pauses and all of that. So very, very proud of him though. He's done an amazing job this past block. So first thing that we're going to do, we're going to figure out what day he actually competes. So let's look it up. Minnesota USAPL State Championship, because this is going to determine how we put together his actual like week as a whole. This is the roster. I don't know if they have the schedule up though. Let me check. Because that would be on Lifting Cast. No, it would not be. Well, I'm going to assume. Oh, here we go. Schedule TBD. Awesome. I'm going to assume that he competes on a Saturday because that's when everybody competes. So what we need to do right now, his primary squat and primary bench are already on a Saturday. That's perfect. So we don't really have to change anything there. The reason that I like to check this is because say that he competes on a Sunday, I would move all of his squat days up one. I would move all of his bench days up one. That way it lines up with the day that he actually competes, and there's not another day of gap between his last bench session and the day that he competes, because then he could come in detrained, or his last squat session in the day that he competes. So we are going to go through his taper. His last day of training will be Thursday. So we can just delete these last two rows. Delete those cells. The other thing that I'm going to do that I do for everybody is I'm just going to lower his accessory workload by one. I like keeping accessories in. And I'm going to take out this AMRAP. We're just going to do 2 sets of 6 to 8. I like keeping accessories in. I think that the musculature needs it. I think it's important. And so we're keeping them in, but we are going to just lower the overall workload so we get some sort of like taper buff from it, right? Now, let's start with squat. So this is generally my preferred way of tapering people. I want to be able to, let's actually define what a taper is first. A taper is being able to pull a certain amount of workload down from an individual to peak their top end strength. This is done a lot in oh, not end stream. Oh, that was almost bad. This is done a lot in like marathoning. You'll hear it a lot in marathoning as well, where it's like, okay, I have my taper. I was running like 40 miles a week beforehand. This week, I'm only running 20 miles a week. What does that do? It lowers the volume so they're able to run faster on meet day, on marathon day, which will help them out a lot. And so it's the same thing here. We're just going to play around with volume and intensity, though, rather than mileage, because he doesn't run right now, at least to my knowledge. So we're going to play around with his volume and intensity a little bit. So on this day, it's nice that he already has a single here on his secondary day because we don't need to program one. Normally, if this was like a 1x5 and a 2x7, I would add in a single so he has one last heavy exposure before his actual primary day. And what I'll do is I'll normally have it be somewhere between his last warm up and his opener. So we'll take this as an example, but I have him squatting anywhere from 257.5 to 262.5 kg on the day. We'll probably take a 15 kilo jump. So 245 to 247.5 kg before that. And then a 20 kilo jump from there. So 227.5 kg is where he's starting. So he's going from 227 to 262. His last one was probably going to be like 200, right? Somewhere in there, 200, 205, somewhere in there. So I'm going to have him take like maybe 210 to 215. He doesn't need that though, because he needs a really heavy exposure beforehand. So I already have outwritten this progression from, and look, you can see it's the exact same from Nick. It's the exact same structure. I do this for everybody. It's just my way. It's just my system, and it works out really well. I already have this written out, so I can just add this in here. Oh, no, I don't. Taper. There we go. So let's go and look at his last meet. So his last meet was raw nats, and he took 237, and he squatted 257. So he needs 237. It was 237.5 divided by 257.5. 92% equals 0.92 divided by 262.5. Oh, whoops. 0.92 times 262.5. So he needs roughly like 240. So I'm just going to write in 240 kg. And that's what he's going to take. It's going to work out really well. This is the one where we ascend to what it was. Sorry. So 210 to 215 kg. And again, just kind of lowering down the overall volume by shaving off a couple reps here. Instead of having a 2x7, now he's got a 2x5, shaving off the reps here. Instead of, 1x3, a 1x3, and a 1x2, he's got a 1x3, a 1x2, and a 1x1. So again, kind of pulling that workload down so that he's able to express top end strength a little bit better on the actual meet day. Bench press is very easy. He's just training bench into the meet. I do this for all of my athletes. They just train bench into the meet. Bench doesn't taper like squat and deadlift do. It just doesn't. We do it too often, and the loads aren't heavy enough for it to like have this taper effect. And if I were to pull the same amount of workload that I did on squat on his bench, he'd feel like shit. So we're going to just kind of log in what he needs here. Again, 190 to 195 is what I had him at. Secondary is going to take 185 to 190. So this is 185 to 190 kg. 172.5 to 177. What I will do, though, is instead of having his straight sets here, or no, he doesn't have straight sets. Yeah, instead of having his two top sets here on his secondary day, I'm just going to have him do one top set. So that way it's a little bit less. 172.5 to 177.5. That's the wrong block. My bad. 177 to 182. I was about to say that was pretty crazy. I think. Secondary 1x1. Yeah. Whoops. That was the wrong block. 182.5 kg. I was like, that's a really big jump. 165 to 170. There we go. And then we're just moving him to have one more back down, essentially. And then on this day, he needs primer 4x3 taper. This is where I'll pull a little bit, and I will have this be an RP7 cap, and we'll treat this much like I treated the other two. So 190 to 195. He'll probably take 182.5 to 187.5. Actually, 185 to 190. And then 177.5 to 182.5. So his last one was going to be like 170, probably. So we'll take we'll say 175 here. There we go. And then a 3x3. And so this is his primer day here. That way he is still getting the volume that he needs, but he's able to touch something a little bit heavier than he was here. So that's pretty much bench press, just training as normal. When we get to deadlift, this is where it's very normal for all of my athletes. If you're one of my athletes, you know about this. The 4x1 deadlift peak. That's just what he's going to do. That's all he has on deadlift, a 4x1. Why does this work? Honestly, I don't know. It's like it was given to me in a dream, basically. Now, this is something that my old coach, Sean Noriega, talked about with me, where it's just like a lot of bigger guys, or a lot of guys in general, that don't need a ton of like rep work on their deadlift, can get away with just doing a couple singles and feeling good. And so that's what we're doing. We're gonna do a couple singles, and we're gonna do those couple singles right around where I said he would, which is right before like the upper end, the upper 75 percentile or percent of his last warm up to his top set. So he's going to pull 287.5 to 292.5 kg. He's going to take his second set at like 270 to 272.5 to 275. So it's about a 17 kilo jump. Top is going to be 20 kilo jump. Actually, I'll make this 15. No, I like 17. So his last one was probably going to be like 225. So we're going to take like 240 to 245. That's it. That's his taper. Hopefully you guys kind of understand that. If you have any questions for me, I would love to be able to answer them. But that's pretty much it. That is Nick Stevens' actual like training, his whole next block, and Thomas Swartout's taper. And this was really fun. I actually really enjoyed this. I'm glad that you guys were able to tag along for it. I hope that you learned something. This was like a really fun thing for me to do. I think that I'm going to continue to do it in the future if I get some good feedback from you guys. This will be uploaded on the channel. So it'll be about an hour 18 video on the channel itself. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. Appreciate you guys. I'm going to keep this going for like another 5 minutes. So if you do have any questions, you can ask them, because there was a lot of information today. So yeah, I'm going to do some client feedback. My boy, Matt Cruz. Where he just benched a very juicy 135. Yeah, this looks awesome. It's really all I needed to say. That it looked dope. There we go. Cool. All right. If there's no questions, I'm just going to go ahead and log off because I need to go train. Peace out. Oh, this is also our dog, Jake. Jake the dog. Let me go ahead and grab my webcam real quick. This is Jake. He's the best. Come here, Jake. Jake. Come on. Yeah. Jake. Yeah, Jake. Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Y'all have a good one.